Hey everyone, it's Aiden at Full Cycle. Today we're going to be showing you everything you need to know to properly pump up your bicycle's tires. Pumping up your tires may not seem like a huge consideration if you've been riding for years and years, but it is one of the more fundamental things to know how to do just in terms of general bike maintenance and to ensure that you make the most out of your ride on whatever bike you're riding. Alright, so first things first. Valves. You've probably noticed on bikes that you'll see two really common valve types. The first one right here is called the Shrader valve. It'll probably be the more common to most of you. It's the exact same as you'll see on pretty well any car, and it works more readily with your standard car air compressor. So if you see these, that's called a Shrader valve. This one here, it's a little bit more specific to bicycles. They call it the Presta valve. And it has this little core on top that you have to unscrew before you even try to put any air in there. If you see this valve, don't be scared if you've only ever inflated a bike tire with the Shrader valve. We're going to show you how to make it work. It's not anything to be afraid of. Pumping up your tires requires one of two things that you'll probably have lying around somewhere. First things first, you could go with one of your standard air compressors. Same kind you'd use to top up the air in your car tires. The other option is a bike pump like so. A lot of bike pumps these days have a head that's compatible with both valve types that we talked about earlier, but if in the event you run into an issue where you have a Presta valve and nothing to put air into it, you can go ahead and use one of these handy dandy little Presta valve adapters to screw on top to make it wide enough that it'll fit a Shrader head pump. All right, it's pumping time. We're gonna start off with a Shrader valve on this bike here. You might be a little bit curious about how hard you should pump your tires. That's definitely a personal thing, but if you want some sort of guideline to go off of, you can take a look around the sidewall of your tire, and what you'll find is a recommended pressure range. On this bike here, you'll see that it tells you to inflate between 35 and 52 psi. Pressure will depend on a few things like the terrain you're riding, whether it's wet, dry, bumpy, smooth, that kind of thing, as well as rider weight, and also just personal preference. Do you like a little bit more softness in your tire? Do you like them to feel a little bit firmer? Just things that you'll figure out as you get more comfortable on your bike. So in general, with this bike here, we're gonna go somewhere between 35 and 50 psi. First things first, you're gonna wanna get the cap off the end of this valve here. So just unthread that, put it somewhere you're not going to lose it. A lot of pumps work a lot like this, but some are slightly different. In general, you're going to see some type of lever mechanism on the head of the pump, and you'll either have one hole that fits over both valves, two holes, one for each valve, or a Shrader specific pump head that you're going to have to put an adapter on, which we'll get to later. You're going to take this head here, press it down onto the valve as far as you can, and flip this lever up to lock it on. Now the hard work begins. It's pumping time. We've reached 40 psi air pressure in this tire, and now we're good to go. All we need to do is close this lever again, pull the head off the valve, screw back on your end cap. Next, we're going to take a look at the dreaded Presta valve. It's really almost the exact same procedure. You have literally one extra step, nothing to worry about at all, especially if you've got one of these handy dandy dually compatible pump heads. First things first, same as the other guy, take the cap off. Gonna have trouble pumping it up with it on. This is the only extra step you're going to need to do with your Presta valve is unscrew this, which we call the valve core. You hear that hissing sound. When you press down on that, that's letting the air out. That's also how the air gets let in when the pump head is pressed on. And now everything's the exact same. It's just a matter of clipping that head on just like the Shrader valve, and we're good to go. Now that we're done with the pump, all we need to do is close this lever back up, pull the head off the valve, And since we're working with Presta here, we're gonna need to close that valve core back up or else all that air is gonna leak out. Definitely don't forget to put that cap back on. It's especially important for Presta valves. Keeps that valve core closed, keeps you out of trouble. Like I said at the beginning, you might run into a situation where you would rather use one of these air compressors to fill up your tire than a hand pump. Save you some sweat. Maybe you just don't have a hand pump. A lot of people who own cars have these anyway. All kinds of situations. The caveat is if you run into a situation where you want to use one of these, but you have a bike with a Presta valve, you're going to need this little Presta valve adapter. All you need to do is take this and stick it on top of your Presta valve, remembering to unscrew the core just like you would in any case. Rubber side onto the valve. You'll screw it down until it's tight, and you've just turned your Presta valve into a Shrader valve. All that's left is to thread the head of your air compressor onto the end of that adapter, and you're ready to go. With your tire once again up to pressure, all that's left is to do the whole process in reverse. So we're just gonna unscrew the compressor head from the adapter, unscrew the adapter from the valve, close that valve core, pop your end cap back on, and you're ready to go. And that's that. You guys are all ready to hit the road, the trail, and everything in between. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and stay locked to the channel for much more content to come.